Hello, and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where it speaks to mavericks and interesting characters from the entertainment world. Now, today's guest, whoa, he's got so many different names. He is like Madonna, like Prince, like Cher, in that he's given himself a unique stage name that makes him stand out. It's like you've heard of Tom Jones. You've heard of Jones, which is a Welsh name. So I'm guessing he is an LA comic, but his stage name is Jonesy. So I'm guessing there's a bit of Welsh there. He's a man who finds a lot of weird news. He's like a researcher, a journalist in comedy. He's been gigging for 14 years. He's a man with so many diverse backgrounds. He is the Russian doll of the LA comedy scene. Please welcome Jonesy.
Well, thank you so much, Marvin. I've never had such an extravagant introduction before. I like how you threw the Welsh thing in there. I've gotten that before. People will ask me, are you Welsh?" And honestly, I don't know because my last name Jones is an adopted name. So I believe it probably is Welsh, but I've definitely embraced it. And the nickname Jonesy I've had for a very long time, which is a very common nickname for anyone with the last name Jones
Oh,
anyways. So yeah, pretty common. And so everyone, it started with just my friends calling me that, and then everybody called me that. And I thought, well, I'll just keep going with that as a stage name as well, and it fits. I'm not the only one, but yeah, I'm doing okay with it, and I'm happy to be on your podcast as well. Thanks for having me on the Comedian's Paradise. Let's let everybody know what a paradise it is to be a comedian.
oh, it's well, it's always a cesspit, isn't it? It's a cesspit of drugs, cocaine, alcohol, gin. What else is there?
And low pay. So if you like all of that and low pay, then being a comedian is for you, my friend.
But and unless you're good with social media marketing and podcast marketing, or unless you know how to sort of whatever reason, you know how some people follow a lot of women on Instagram because they got nice attributes, or men
Yes,
because they have nice attributes.
sure.
If you have a lot of fans like that in comedy, then boom, you're sorted out.
Yeah, I mean, I make more money off my podcast than I do with any sort of live stand-up comedy appearances. Definitely. I did. In fact, did a gig Wednesday night, $50 and food and drinks. It's like that's kind of typical in the LA area. $50, $100, and some free drinks. Okay, not exactly money you can live off of those. So it's helpful if you got some nice knockers. You can start an OnlyFans account and supplement your income that way. And you don't even have to be funny with your knockers. They can just be their knockers.
That's yeah. No, but it's effectively. It, I've had this from a few comics in terms of like if it's a big part of it is your marketing and like that's a big part of how you do in comedy and like your networking. Not it's you also got to be funny, but like the with Sammy C, and he's okay with me saying this before the podcast. He said to get booked and shows what he'd do is he was have a drink with the promoter rather than
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's
like
a lot of that. You have to network like that because there's a lot of comedians these days. I started when I started in it's actually I've been doing it longer than 14 years. I started in 2004, and at the time it didn't seem to me as though there was as many comedians. You could get paid and get on stage a little easier. Something's happened since then. There's been a real explosion. The popularity of stand-up comedy, I think, that came with streaming helped. All of a sudden there was all this stand-up comedy was on Netflix and Hulu, and it wasn't like that before. Uh, and and of course with the podcasting as well, all these comedians' voices have been injected into the culture with podcasts, and every big name comic seems to have one these days. And it just seems like we're taking in more content created by comedians than we've ever have before, and I think that's influenced younger generations to want to get into it. And they have, and so now there's so many comedians. uh, you have to do a little legwork to get work these days. You have to have a drink with the promoter. You really have to spend your time doing that, hanging out more than ever before. Networking efforts definitely need to be ramped up these days, for sure. And, Sammy nails it. And then it helps if you have a thing about you, like Sammy's a gay comic. So Sammy, and I would imagine Sammy gets work that way. You know who you are, and you know where your audience is. He probably makes a nice income when he gets on some sort of LGBTQ comedy shows and festivals and whatnot. It's probably an avenue for him. So knowing who you are and who your audience is, it helps as well, if you can kind of narrow that down. Yeah, my audience is stupid people. I just narrow in on the stupid people. They love me.
Is there so there are quite a lot of successful comics in the UK that they may not do the circuit that much. They may not be big circuit comedians, but they're very, they got people that love what they do and they just make a living doing that. And is there, what's the word for it? One of the things that people say of comedy is that it's treated too much as one art form. In music, if you don't like it, they say, "Oh, I don't like that style of genre." But in comedy, they're saying, "Oh, if they don't like it, you're not funny." Is there a bit of a thing going on with LA in terms of comics as starting to find their own niches, and there's different sort of groups coming in as a result of that?
Well, niches have definitely been a thing in LA, and I noticed it in New York as well. And it's because I'm just speaking of the niches here. People are opening more venues and creating more live shows that happen to be in niches. Example, in LA, you can find all female comedy shows where all the comics are just females, all gay. Urban rooms, we call them urban rooms, where you'll go and it's mostly black comics. There are Mexican comedy rooms as well out here in LA, where all the comics you'll see are Latin. You'll even find shows that are only in Spanish speaking shows. There's so many niches now that it's created all of these little categories, so you have more choices naturally. And I think that's just a fallout of how many comedians are now doing it. So it's just naturally it's like any product. When ice cream exploded, you got more flavors, right? It probably was only chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. Well, now you can imagine, and you can go to a specific ice cream place that does weird flavors. Like, oh, I want to go. They make a Guinness flavored ice cream or a root beer. I've seen these before, and you'll find them in LA. So with a more influx of talent, you have all these niches now. You have what are called alternative comedy rooms too. We call them alt rooms. And you might find them in hipster neighborhoods where a lot of artists live there, intellectuals, and they want a brand of comedy that is different. And so those shows will proliferate for those audiences. We become we're a culture now where it's like, I would like choice. We want choices, and you can have it your way. It's like that in music too. It's been like that in music for a long time, where you gravitate towards a specific style or niche of music. I like heavy metal, and you can go and find those live music venues that only play that, or a festival that only plays artists like that, or you could find like a reggae music festival. So those niches have come about, I think, because of the amount of people doing it, and in conjunction with just all of us wanting more choices in life with whatever we're taking in for entertainment. So that's a thing. The fallout of that, and this wasn't part of your question, but it's just something that maybe your audience might find interesting. The fallout of that is you will get comics that will fall into a niche, and they'll only do that. And that becomes them, and that's what they do. They only do well, like they'll only do well in an urban comedy room or an alternative comedy room. and they'll just stay there, and they'll just, all their material will come out of that environment. And I'm not a comic that does that. I like to try to do all the different rooms if I can, because I'm always trying to get more stage time. So I'll go do a gay comedy show. I'll do an urban room. Um, they won't let me on the all female comedy shows, of course, but wherever they'll let me stage time wise, I'll go. I'll get on the mic and I'll try to make that kind of audience laugh, and then that makes me grow as a comic and it makes me a better comic. For the comics that are listening to this, I would say get out of your comfort zone if you can. Don't just do those niche audiences. I think you'll grow as an artist if you try to branch out and make all kinds of people laugh. And that's sort of the mark of a true great comedian, is if you can make many different people, all ages, all genders, and then if you can move around the world, like I've done comedy in other continents, and if you can make people from other parts of the world laugh as well, that's another way to get out of your comfort zone, branch out. The niche comedy is here to stay, though, for sure. You'll see that even on Netflix. There's some people want to watch a comedy special by a trans person, and this is what they're into. They'll watch that, but that person may hate Dave Chappelle. So it's like there's so even the platforms want to provide these niches for their audiences. They want to give them a variety, and I think that's great.
There are a lot of niche comics, obviously, in the UK that are doing very well for themselves, like on the Apollo and all of that. But there's also a bit of distaste in terms of most comics, and most of the ones that get ahead are fit into a certain genre of sort of type of comedy. Would you say, the case in LA as well? Like there's one or two that are a bit odd or a bit niche that are able to fit in around them, but for the most part, it's sort of straight stand up that gets the big things.
Do you mean the type of stand up, or do you mean just type of comedy in general?
The type of comedy that like TV produces and that gets put up there is mostly just straight stand up.
In my opinion, when it comes to these TV production, these TV executives, they often will overlook. This is just my opinion. They'll often overlook a skillful stand-up comedian. If you're able to tell jokes and get laughs, they'll often overlook that for other qualities of you that can be packaged to sell. We could kind of postulate why those reasons are, but it's sort of like that in the casting world. So when a casting, I'm in LA, I was in New York prior to this. Occasionally you'll do shows and there might be casting people in the audience, and the casting people were usually not interested in the funniest comedian on the show. They were interested in the person that they could cast the most, which usually didn't have so much to do with their stand-up comedy skills or their joke writing skills, but what they looked like, what their personality was on stage, their image, perhaps their ethnicity, maybe even their gender or their sexual orientation. And of course, there are trends in the world of casting and TV production like there are anywhere else. So, like right now, Asians I see a lot of opportunities for Asians in the world of television and film and in casting. I also, as an actor, I often submit myself to acting roles and jobs on the various websites out here, and I've noticed in the past few years an influx in Asian roles, and that makes sense because there's been some really popular Asian streaming series and films as well, and in the culture recently. So this is a trend I've noticed. So there's all these other forces that might that create a situation where they're more interested in you outside of your stand-up comedy skills. You might be the quote unquote flavor of the year, like, let's say, and as we move into creating more and more diverse television and films, diversity seems to have overtaken diversity in in your ethnicity, your look, your gender, your sexual orientation has moved, I think, above your stand-up comedy skills. This is just my opinion, of course. So you can be kind of funny, but if you have that, if you are of a certain category and a look, you can get work. And you don't have to be such a great stand-up comic at that point. You just have to be okay. I think, of course, you can't be so terrible that people are like, oh, gee, you know what I mean? It definitely leaves a bad taste in your mouth if you're a horrible comic. But if you're just okay, but you have that look that they want right now, that ethnicity that's hot right now, you can get work for sure, for sure. And of course, even with live stand-up comedy shows, there is a thing, of course, where comedy show producers, like I'm just saying for live comedy, they'll say, hey, I could really use a female comic on the show that I'm booking. I need to find a female comic. Or they'd be like, I need to find a couple more ethnic comics on my show, because people are now expecting that at live shows. So you may be an okay female comic, but because there's a quota now that people want to fill on their live comedy shows as producers, you'll get a little bit more work than even an extremely funny male comic, let's say, because we have enough male comics, but we need to fill this variety quota to offer what we think the crowd wants, which is people are expecting to see a Black comic, a Latin comic, a gay comic, a female comic on when they go to a live show now. So you can be quasi funny, but there are other forces that'll bring you to the stage, for sure.
Have you heard of someone called the Critical Drinker?
What? Say that again.
The Critical Drinker.
The Critical Drinker. No, I have not.
He's a Scottish YouTube movie reviewer. He's got like 1.5 million subscribers, and he's been going for a while. It's a YouTuber, and he reviews a lot of films and TV series. And it is pretty funny. It's pretty funny. It's pretty accurate, and he talks about like the Rings of Power, House of Dragon, and he talks about Top Gun. And he says with what's it called, Rings of Power, it's dreadful. I've not seen it, but from what I hear from a lot of people, I hear it's absolutely dreadful.
I've heard the same thing.
There's a lot of pandering, like the acting's poor, and whilst with Top Gun, it was just focused on being a good product rather than sort of pandering and trying to fit people's needs. And that's the same case of saying of Disney, because it doesn't want to say anything too controversial with certain nations because it's.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on, and you get you mentioned the word pandering. Yeah, that does happen it's in all industries, it seems, and it gets a little frustrating with your entertainment, because sometimes the end product is not exactly entertaining, and it's sort of like you have to ask that question. Well, what are we going here? What's the end goal of an entertainment company? Is it to be entertaining as possible, to put the best talent out there on the screen for everybody's enjoyment, or is it to make everybody or is it to put an image of your company out there where no one can throw a stone at it because you've covered all your bases by being part of an all-inclusive culture? You see what I'm saying? So what are you going for if you're Disney? What are you going for if you're Netflix? That image, you have the image of you as a company that people really care about now. They really do. And you don't want bad reviews of your company, right? In fact, you'll even accept bad reviews of your product as long as people don't attack your company for being insensitive to the changing culture that we have, not being inclusive, and I guess that's the question is, it comes down to the consumer. What do you want? I know what I want. I want the best entertainment possible. I want to see the best comedy, the funniest comedy. I don't care about anything else. I don't care who the person is gender-wise, who the person is with their ethnicity, where they're from, what their sexual orientation is. I just want the best entertainment. And if I had a company, I would go that way. Given the nature of the landscape, it's very competitive. Why wouldn't you want to put the best comedy material out there? But companies make other choices based on other things. So, I'm not the one in charge of those places and those organizations. And so, but if I was, I would question this new approach. I want to see the best product. That's all. I don't care. I don't have any. It could be, we have television is skewing away from the elderly. They've been doing that for a long, long time. You hit a certain age and they don't even want you anymore. So I would rather see an old, ancient stand-up comedian on a Netflix streaming special that had amazing jokes than a young, attractive comic with so-so jokes. I live in a world now where that doesn't happen, though. Netflix, Netflix just doesn't want the old guy, Of course, they let a few trickle in, like Bill Burr and Tom Segura and Rogan. We could say these are old guys, yeah, in a way, but there's a lot of other old comics that have been doing this for a long, long time that have amazing material and amazing jokes. No one's ever going to see them and know who they are because they'd rather put a young, hip comic with a mohawk on instead. This is another trend. And so I applaud anybody who eschews all of that pressure from society and only goes for the best talent, whether it's writing, acting, stand-up comedy, music. I applaud people that do that because it's sad to say you actually take a risk when you do that. It's like, when Seinfeld was doing comedians in cars getting coffee, I loved it, right? Watched the first season. He's getting coffee with his funny friends. And then someone reached out to him after season 2 or 1 or said, "Hey man, you're going to get in trouble if you don't put more women on this show." And Seinfeld was like, "What? I'm just putting my people I think are funny that are my friends." And he said, "Well, why should I have to fulfill some quota? This is my show. I have funny friends, whether they're men or not. Who gives a damn? They're funny. They're my friends. I'm putting them on the show." Eventually, he gave way to that pressure, I think, in a way, because then you saw a change in it. And not to say that the show got worse, but I didn't see a problem with where it was and where it was going because every episode was funny. Everyone on it was his funny friend, and I enjoyed it. So, this is a phenomenon that's been going on for a bit now, and I don't see a change anytime soon. It seems to just be getting, it seems to be just going in the direction that I don't like, which is a watered down product, like entertainment wise, in my opinion.
But the thing is, there was a. Do you watch boxing at all?
Sadly, I'll only watch when Jake Paul's fighting some idiot. That's all but I don't typically watch it. No.
But there's the heavyweight champion of the world, like Tyson Fury, like he's supposed to be the fighter of the generation.
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah. I've seen one or two of his fights.
He's a great boxer, and that fight of Wilder's amazing, isn't it? The way he got up from that punch. Woof. Yep. But he got an interview of a podcast called True Geordie, and he basically, Tyson Fury, heavyweight champion of the world, he says he's the people's champion, and he's fighting Derek Chisora, who's a boxer who he's beat twice before, and quite easily. But he's doing another fight now, which is not what people want. But the point of what I'm saying is, True Geordie is a massive podcaster now, and he can ask the questions and say what he wants to him because he's got such a big platform and because he's well supported, and it doesn't matter what Tyson Fury does. While so many people now can't do that because they're so scared of doing something wrong or.
Yeah. So this has created another idea in your head as someone who produces content, right? Content producers now have to think about this extra thing. You say, well, whereas before I would imagine you just think about, how do I entertain my audience as best as I can? But now I have to think of, no, I have to not only entertain my audience, but I have to play it really safe so that people that aren't even my audience won't throw stones at me and accuse me of being, someone who's racist or uninclusive. It just creates another thing that you have to think about. And I think it's so competitive, the world of entertainment, that, any sort of time that you take away from just working on your product itself is going to hurt you, whether you're thinking about, how do I be more inclusive, or how do I not get just totally wrecked from comments on YouTube and social media. If you're thinking about those things, I mean, I think your product's going to suffer at the end of the day. If you can live with that as a creator, then go for it. One of the things I do on my podcast is I just speak my mind, and I don't really worry about those other things. I try not to say the F word, but other than that, because I want to kind of keep it somewhat clean, because people are listening on smart speakers these days, so there might be children around, and so I don't go crazy on my podcast with swearing and being offensive and gross and dirty. I don't really do that, but I speak my mind and I give my opinion on all sorts of topics, all sorts of stuff. We just covered a story about someone who lost his job because he dressed up as Hitler for Halloween. It's a pretty controversial thing, and people slam this guy. But when you go through the story, you find out that this guy has a mental disability. This guy is, although he's an adult man, he has cognitive disability, whatever that, they didn't name what it is, but maybe he could be autistic, on the spectrum. Who knows what it is? But I defended him. This guy's made a mistake, and he doesn't know any better because he has a cognitive disability. This, in fact, we could say, hey, what a great thing to happen to him. It's now can be a teaching moment for him in his life. But the way people came down on him, it's just like, but I spoke my mind. And, a lot of people wouldn't have said that. They would have said, yes, this is horrible. How dare you be Hitler in the culture? Hitler's a terrible person. I think most content producers covering that story would have said that. And that's the safe way to go. But when you learn, if you have all the information with the story, you have to go I went the honest route. The honest route is, this guy gets a free pass. Is something wrong with him? He didn't kill somebody. He did something inappropriate that someone with his cognitive disability. How many people we know don't pick up social cues very well? You hit on a girl 5 times, she says no, you still don't get it. There's people out there that don't get it, and it takes some learning for them. It takes a little extra. We're not on the same playing field with our brains. Is everybody aware of that? I mean, the way that we judge everybody in the culture, it's as though we expect everybody to be on the same mental playing field, the same moral playing field. Well, that would be nice, but the reality is it's all a spectrum, and we have morons out there and we have geniuses out there and everything in between. And you can't expect everybody to get on board right away with your new perspectives and your new rules in the culture, words that we can't say. Some people aren't with it, man. It's going to take them a while. It's going to take them a teaching moment oftentimes, and so these are things that I'll express on my podcast, and I don't care what people think. This is my opinion, and I'm giving it, and I'll lose listeners, but I'll also gain and retain listeners because they appreciate what I do on this podcast by giving my perspective and my opinion and not caring what anybody thinks about it. I let the people attack me after it. I let the people write their bad reviews, and then I even read them. I made fun of Christians in a recent episode, and I had someone gave me a horrible review about it, and the start of the review was "makes fun of Christians." That was the title of this person's review. Makes fun of Christians. It's like, if you're not paying attention, I actually make fun of everybody on that show. On my podcast, I make everybody's game, especially if you're Orthodox religion, you're gonna get made fun of if I come across it on the show. And by the way, I was raised Catholic. I'll make fun of it all day if I feel like it. It's one of the things. It's one of the aspects of me that I'm actually allowed to make fun of because I am that. So that's the other thing that goes on in the culture. If you're not that, they don't allow you to talk about it or make fun of it. So now you're gonna tell me I was raised Catholic, I can't even talk about Catholicism or make fun of it? Step off,
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely. I think, yeah, definitely. You can't have a go at someone for making something that they know about and they're qualified to talk about, and it's what they've been through.
I would even argue this is not happening now. People say that if you're not that, you can't make fun of it. Well, I would argue that that's not true either. I mean, why can't I make fun of Orthodox Islam, the way they treat women, stuff like that? I mean, there's something in everything that is unsavory to somebody. So why can't you mention it, even if you're not that? You know what I'm saying? So like I go the other way with it. I make fun of everything, but it doesn't come from a place of ignorance. Oftentimes, I'll make fun of stuff that I'm familiar with. But I also remain open. If someone makes an argument, I'm open to that, and I'm open to changing my perspective on things as well, which I think is also very important. If you're gonna critique things, you also critique it with an open mind, that your ideas can be changed with new information or a new experience. So I try to do that as well.
That's yeah. This is a topic that's also a part minority as well. This is something that is I'm always a bit in two minds with. I had an incident. What's it called? About a week ago. Like, I was flying for a local comedy gig that I run, and it was a bit of a strange incident in that there's a bunch of, I'll say Eastern European because they had the accent and they sound and the look. They're from Eastern Europe. They were having a chat. They were in a little group, but as soon as I saw one of them there, he was shouting out DVD, DVD, and I was thinking, what's going on here? I didn't get it the first time, but he said it a couple of times, and he said DVD, DVD, and then I was a bit sort of taken back by it. See, in that situation, it was someone that I knew and I had a good relationship with. It would be cool, but it was someone that they don't know me. They just see me on the street and they're treating it like it's a funny thing. It's a bit like me saying to them, "Could you build us a log?" Or could you go on, like, be my builder for a day? Mm-hmm. But they thought that was a joke. But if it was done in the right way, then it's in terms of being just trying to be pally. But it felt like he wanted to look cool in front of his friends by taking the piss out of someone else.
That's exactly what was going on. Yeah, taking the piss out of a stranger. And you don't know them, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not okay, in my opinion. And I would never do something like that, ever.
How I responded back was, "Mate, DVD's a bit out of fashion. I know you don't understand it and you're not bright enough to understand, but it's okay." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just joking, I'm just joking." He said, "I'm just joking." Mm-hmm. But it was a bit like, I don't know, it was a bit of, in that situation, there's a lot more I could have said and done. When you think as a comedian, you could have said this and that. But in that situation, that wasn't right. If it was someone I knew and we're having a bit of a laugh and a joke, we'll say all sorts of things and done in a friendly, trying to engage and interact way, rather than just try and make fun of someone in front of your friends way, then that would have been okay.
Yeah, it's called context. So if the context was, it was you and your mates and you guys are always taking the piss out of each other, it's harmless. You know that the intention behind it isn't to really hurt you, But in that context where you're a stranger to them, You know, they're doing it. They're actually hurting your feelings or like attacking you. Attacking is that's a that's a harsh word, but they're doing it as you for the reason as you said earlier to look cool in front of their friends. You know, context is everything. That's why people say this with stand-ups. In the actual room where the stand-up comedy show is happening, that is the context, and that's the context that the comics have created, which is why it's repulsive to me when people extract clips out of a stand-up comedy show and then attack that comic for saying it and sharing it. So look at what this comic said at this show. And 9 times out of 10, you see those videos, the crowd is laughing because in that context, it was permissible to say what was being said. In that context, permissible. You take it out and pass it around and say this comic is racist or sexist or whatever. That is not, it's out of context now. And now an easy target for attacking, but people don't make that connection with the context. Your situation, same. That in that context, not okay. But if it was your friends, you guys are always taking the piss out of each other. That context is safe. This is common, man. This is common. I think you handled it very well, though.
It was. I think it's yeah. It's something. Yeah, context is the biggest thing, as you said.
It's
with it.
huge. It's huge.
It's everything with this type of situation.
Correct. It's everything with this type of situation, and it gets even worse. Sometimes they'll take a quote out of and they won't even take the video clip of the comedian. They'll actually print out the joke and put it in a blog article and be like, the comic said this, and then they type it, and it looks horrible in that way. That's even further removed from the context, and it makes the comedian an easy target at that point. I just it's horrible when they do that. I really hate that, and you see it often, especially with the comics that are really, really famous. There was that incident of Daniel Tosh and the rape joke that he did. That I recall a few years ago. That I thought they did. That was a horrible thing that they did, because within the context, everybody laughed. The joke worked. It was permissible in that. But everybody, you take the word rape out of the context, because they can't even fathom a context within which joking about rape is acceptable. But yeah, there is a context where joking about rape is acceptable. I'm sorry to tell you, be an adult and recognize that. Context is everything,
The thing that's quite there's a YouTube channel that I follow called Eisen Lellinger. I think that's what his name is. But he talks about how yeah, we got dark sides. Stop trying to pretend to be virtuous or this and that. And a lot of times when you try and be virtuous, you're trying to hide that side of yourself that you don't like. And it's often people using it as a cover for devious things. We're in entertainment. We know that a lot of people act to be this and that to try and get ahead. And then when you find what's underneath, it's not nice. And the thing is, it's also in some ways maybe they're dodgy people and they want to get the dogs to stop sniffing on them. So they put the blame on someone else.
That could be happening. Sure.
It's also that, yeah, they want to feel good about themselves, but it's bullying. What you're doing is like in a school where like if someone pissed themselves or something and they're all laughing at them and you're making fools out of them, it's in this similar way in a way, because you're using that as an excuse to try and ruin someone.
Yeah.
It's bullying.
Sure. And when you say ruin someone, you really mean ruin them. I mean, they want to take people's careers away is what they want to do. Right. And that's what you're doing. I don't know if that's their intention. Like, I'm going to take their career away completely. But when you put someone on blast, like a comedian like that, we've seen it. They could completely disappear and never work again. It is a possible outcome, and so they don't think of that, though. They don't consider that. I mean, is that really something that you want on yourself, that you were part of a mob that put somebody's career away because you didn't approve of a joke they did? It's one thing to say about their behavior, like Bill Cosby, horrible
Yeah.
behavior. And I'm okay with Bill Cosby going to jail and staying in jail for what he's done. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone's art, someone's creation that you find offensive, that you don't agree with. Maybe you don't even define it as art. This isn't comedy. This is what they say. This is not comedy. That's what they say, as though they're the fucking referee, excuse my language, of comedy. They're going to tell us what is comedy. And did you ever notice that the people that go out there and say this isn't comedy, those people are often the people that are so removed from comedy in their own world. Like, they wouldn't know a joke if it hit them in the groin. Let's be real. These are the most unfunny, angry, out of sorts people anyways. You're going to tell me what comedy is? You wouldn't know comedy if it landed on top of you, So that's a thing too. And there's some authority. Get out of here. I don't kowtow to any of that. And, I'm not a famous comic, so I haven't had to deal with that. But I know exactly how I'll deal with it if I get there, and I'm not going to fold. Hell no. I'm going to tell them where they can go. And if I lose fans, I lose fans. But the people that know me and know who I am, they'll stay with me. They'll stick with me. They'll be loyal.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? How would someone like Patrice O'Neill do be done with now? Because with Andrew Tate, do you know of Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
The thing with him, right? So many people that I come across, like women and male feminists or whatever, they say about this and that. But the thing is, Andrew Tate is a marketer. He's using your hatred or whatever to boost his sales for his product. That's what he's doing. And every time you talk about him doing that, you're doing his job for him. If you don't want him to have any influence or whatever, stop talking about him.
Well, I do a YouTube series called Comedians React, and it's me and another comedian named Dwayne Perkins, and we'll take a clip from a comedian that we love, and we'll break it down. We'll break down the joke from a technical standpoint. Between the two of us, we have 40 plus years of stand-up experience, so we break it down like a seasoned comic would, for people. And we just covered Patrice O'Neill, and in addition to talking about the joke that Patrice did in our episode, we talked about him as an entertainer, as a comic, and a person. And Dwayne knew Patrice very well. And one of the questions I asked Dwayne was, how do you think Patrice would have handled the cancel culture now, especially the way that he would talk about women on his podcast and stuff? And Dwayne just said it would have been great for him, and because he would have the peak of his fame would have met this cancel culture at the same time, and he was a guy who was totally prepared for that. And the reason he prepared for that is because he's such a great communicator, high level communicator. And when you can communicate your ideas extremely clearly and concise, then it makes it too difficult for people to take you out of context. And Patrice, just like Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr, is a master communicator. Bill Burr definitely punches down on females in his stand-up comedy, has done it for years. It's been part of his thing. But he's such a master communicator that the people that are trying to attack you can't. These guys create such an argument that you have nothing to go by when you're trying to pull them down. And Patrice is one of those guys. He's just a master communicator of his ideas, that they would have, although they would have tried, feminists come at him and whatnot, that would have been a thing. I don't think they would have a leg to stand on at the end of the day, because, the way that he communicates his ideas, he's very skilled. He was very skilled. And so I think it would have just propelled him even further, because he would have constantly been in the news cycle for the outrageous things he said. but you couldn't
Yeah.
you really hook it onto him as being a terrible guy and bring him down for that. I don't think you could. So yeah, I think Patrice would have flourished. And then of course he's the kind of person that can cut you down. Like, he was so witty that if you ever put him in the same room as one of, like let's just say a feminist or something, like, he's like, okay, I'll go on your show. You think what I said was wrong? Let's go on a show and talk about it. And then he would just destroy you. You would never be able to take him down for it. Like, he would have made his point clearly, and then he would have put you down and would have gotten to the truth of who you are as a person that felt they had to do that to him. You know, like, it just would have been amazing to see him handle this. I wish he was still around for many reasons, this being one of them. Seeing how he handled what's going on in the culture with people trying to censor you as a comedian because they don't agree with your point of view. I would have loved that. And for your listeners, if you've never watched Patrice O'Neill's, I think the best place to start is his stand-up comedy special, which is called Elephant in the Room, which was I think it was recorded in 2014, 13 or something. What was it? I can't remember, but it was the last and only real special that he did. But you can watch it on YouTube for free. It's unbelievable. It's outstanding. He's great. A master. Yeah, I love Patrice O'Neill.
And his videos, I mean, I've seen a few clips of him on YouTube. Yeah, as you say, he's a master communicator, and he just was so smart and clever and so aware of things and how things worked, and was so honest. And like, he would be questioned on his podcast, like people were saying this or that, some of the controversial things, and as you said, without repeating it, he would break them down and make them.
He'll just break. Yeah, exactly. He would just break people down. You know, like, you come at him if you dare. I mean, so he had that whole aspect of him. He was just what a guy, man. You know what? It's a big loss, I think, not just for the comedy community, but for the culture. I just would have. I thought him right now in the culture would have been great. He's a voice we need right now. You know, I really believe that.
Do you, Patrice O'Neill, like, he talks about the red pill, blue pill and all that, but what do you make of, like, Andrew Tate? Is he do you feel he's just a marketer, like I've said, or do you feel that's so many people talk about him, but I just feel he's a marketer more than anything else.
Patrice O'Neill. He's like a Patrice O'Neill light, and I definitely question his authenticity a bit. It does seem a little bit markety, and who am I to blame someone? I mean, we all do it on some level as content creators. You know, I might make a video and I'll try and come up with like, for instance, for the videos that we make for Comedians React, I'll take the full video, but then I'll watch, because we'll do like a half an hour to an hour long, and then I'll look for moments in the video that I think might be kind of controversial, and I'll make a small clip of that, and then I'll try and come up with a title that's also a little bit catchy, or like turns your head, or maybe even shock you a little bit, because I'm trying to get people to watch it. I'm aware of that. So this is coming from a place as a creator. I get it. We're all fighting for attention here. And so when I take out that clip, I'll make a title that I think is a little controversial. I won't completely lie, but I might stretch the truth a little bit in my description of the video just to get people to watch it. I admit I do that. So I do have that impulse to how do I get people to take in my content? And so I'm not knocking Tate for doing this. To me, it seems like there's a bit of that with him. He is trying to be controversial for controversy's sake, for the sake of making a career and an income. I get it. But I think anybody who's kind of smart and with it can see that he's doing this a little bit, you know, and so if you're wise, I don't think you'll be completely taken in. You just see that this is part of it. You know, this is part of it. And that's kind of part of being a content creator now. You know, you want to, look at clickbait is a thing, and it goes a lot deeper than Tate. I mean, you'll find major news sources who create clickbait content that isn't even truthful at all. You know, like just completely false, like Fox and some of these places. They'll put out information that is completely not true, that was never checked upon. The sources weren't checked or provided, and they'll just do it for clickbait. I mean, this is the kind of world we live in right now. And he's doing that on his own level in his own way. And I don't fault the guy for that. You know, if he was spreading complete lies that were creating a situation where he was actually putting people in real danger, then maybe, you know, we could argue that Fox News is worse than him.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
part of the media landscape now, and I've kind of accepted that. And in some ways, I use those tools in my own creation, not to lie, but to just sort of get people to take, oh, what is this? You know, if I write something, you know, I might write a very salacious title to a video just to get people to, oh, what is this? This is kind of a crazy thing this person wrote. What is this video crazy? And then, you know, I get it. In other words.
Now, you've been in comedy a while. You've been running a podcast for a while. Now, with so many of us running podcasts, so many people here and there. I mean, we have a lot of comedians. We have a lot of our Facebook friends or all that. And I'd say every other week, I see someone announce we got a podcast series or we got a YouTube clip. Please share and watch. And that's the common sort of trope. And a lot of the times when I watch a lot of comedy podcasts, it's just them chatting to their friends about bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing I really don't like. Obviously, it depends on who the comics are speaking. Like if you watch, you know, Bill Burr and Tom Segura, or Theo Vaughn and Bill Burr, you know, you'll watch those guys have a chat because it's Theo Vaughn and Bill Burr.
Yeah.
But our peers, like my peers and your peers, that are just, hey, I'm starting a podcast, and then you go and it's just them and another like mid-level comedian talking, and there's no structure to it. They're just like, they think that I'll just get together with another comedian and we'll talk, and of course it's going to be funny because we're comedians, so we'll talk about the weather or what we did this week, and why does it matter? People will still listen to it. Well, I'm sorry to say people aren't going to listen to that because they can go listen to Bobby Lee and Joe Rogan just talk about bullshit. Why are they going to listen to you? Someone they don't even know, or maybe they know you, but they don't know the comic that you're with. I mean, you really have to consider the landscape of podcasting before you get into things. Now, of course, that's not to say if they want to do it for fun and no expectations, by all means, it's fun to get together with your comedian friends once a week or once a month and shoot the shit, as they say. That's fun, but don't expect it to have any sort of widespread appeal, and certainly don't expect to make any money with this kind of approach. And I usually advise comedians that's because they will, you know, because my podcast has had success, and they'll ask me for advice on that. And if their pitch to me is I'm going to get together with another comedian and we're just going to get together once so we can talk about whatever's going on, you know, I usually will try to dissuade them from that idea. I always recommend to get very specific with your podcast, because the more specific you get, the better access to an audience you'll have. For instance, if you do if you do a tennis podcast, right? If you just do tennis, now you've opened up that tennis community right there. Now, of course, there's probably many tennis podcasts now, so maybe you want to get even more specific. You know, maybe you just want to do a podcast about Wimbledon. You cover Wimbledon. You do the history of Wimbledon. This is a very specific niche, right? So now you've parsed out even more specific audience for your podcast, and then you have a shot at the podcast getting organic reach. But you're not gonna get any organic reach if what your podcast is about is extremely muddied. You know, it's just general. It's just me and another comic getting together. I mean, it's a real uphill battle at that point. I got very lucky. I chose something very specific, and then I chose a very specific format too, both of which were sort of unique. at the time, I do a 5-day a week weird news, and so at the time I started it, there was no weird news podcast. Now there's some, none of them are every day, maybe once a week, maybe once a month. So I'm doing 5-day a week weird news. No one else is really doing that, that I know of. And so right away, I've separated myself. If you want weird news every day, I'm one of the only games in town. In town. And when I say in town, I mean 2 million podcasts, and so if you can get very specific, that's the way to go, because then you'll have some organic reach. Other than that, it's you might as well shoot a video of you and your buddy pissing in the wind. I mean, no one's really gonna. It's hard to take. You're just who's gonna listen. I mean, you and your family and your friends might, but that's fine because they know you. Maybe they'll listen. I don't know, but I usually don't recommend it. And now it's even worse given the podcast competition. The landscape is crazy now. There's so many. I mean, how do you stand out? You stand out by getting very specific, and just talking to your buddy about the weather isn't specific enough. I'm sorry to say.
What's been a horrifying thing you've listened to in a podcast or YouTube video? What's been a piece of content that's made you go, ugh, what's this?
Oh, geez. Well, you know what? There's a lot of clips of just people being attacked on the streets of of America. A lot of them have been coming out, man. There's a clip of a lady, a homeless person smears shit on her face, like at a Subway. This stuff is alarming to me. I mean, it doesn't make me puke, or I'm not completely scared for my life, but I'm extremely concerned with the number of just random acts of violence in the culture. Now, maybe this was going on before, but now there's all this video of it, and it definitely concerns me. I had a thought where I would do a cross country tour of the U.S. this summer, and I would go and visit fans of the podcast, because I have fans all around. I could go to any major city and there would be fans. I could put on a stand-up comedy show and they'd come out. And then I could also sleep on their couch, record the podcast in their home, sleep on their couch, and then go on to the next thing. Like, I thought, I could do that all across the country. That would be cool. What a fun way to spend a couple months this summer. And then I had to check myself, because I'm like, wait a minute, I could be killed on this trip. Like, my country is so violent. It's very concerning, and it's very concerning how randomly violent it is. In other words, on this trip of mine, I don't have to go seek violence. I don't have to go seek a situation. I don't have to go, in other words, I don't have to go hang out at some seedy bar where clearly bad shit happens, or a bad part of town. I could be anywhere. I could be sleeping in my car in a Target parking lot, and people could just run up on me and light my car on fire. I mean, like, this is what's going on in my country. And these videos have put me in a state where I think about it. And I actually thought to myself, well, maybe doing a trip like this is not a good idea for my own safety, which is really sad, because 15 years ago, when I was in my 20s and shit, I would have totally jumped on this opportunity and done it and not even think twice, and had a great time. Now it's something I think about. It makes me cringe. Now, this isn't, I'm sorry that I took your podcast down, this episode down to such a low place for those who are still hanging on. So sorry. I'm just trying to be real here, though. This is my mindset right now. And it's the mindset of a lot of Americans right now, man.
Welcome to America.
Yeah, welcome to. I'll tell you this: if I was to make this trip, I would not go without a gun. How can I? How can I not go without a gun? I'm gonna go unarmed. Are you out of your mind? No, I have to. I would have to have a gun on a trip like this. I just would have to, in this country right now, for sure, for sure. That's a crazy thing to say. It's a crazy thing to hear come out of my own mouth. I never thought I'd be at this place, but here we are.
Well, in the UK, you probably need a knife.
You would
But
need a
no, no,
knife.
no, 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 no. That's not true. It's not as that bad. Nowhere near that bad. But you, in certain parts,
I would go
maybe.
with a sword.
Yeah, of course, of course. You know, you got to stand out and win. Never mind.
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah, bit like Game of Thrones, eh? No.
Oh, I was thinking more like a samurai sword, but yeah, we could do the Game of Thrones sword too. I'm okay with it. Yeah, so that's stuff that's made me cringe lately. It's not funny either. Sorry.
So,
It's very real.
but to be in the position right now you're in, and for like comics that are listening in terms of like podcasting or social media or getting better as a comedian and being in a position where they're not as worried about where they go out and they express their own thoughts rather
Yeah.
than like be a member of the herd.
Yep.
What bits of advice would you give?
Well, if you've chosen to become a comedian, then you're already not listening to your culture, right? Or the social pressures that are around you. So I applaud anybody who decides to have this lifestyle or to be an artist in general and to do it seriously as a lifestyle. I applaud anybody because there's too much societal pressure to go elsewhere. You know, this and oftentimes even from your family, they'd be like, "What are you doing? You have a degree and you're going to do this?" You know, there's a lot of that people encounter. I was fortunate in that my family didn't give a shit what I did, so that made it easy to just sort of kind of become an artist and live some strange lifestyle where I don't go to a 9 to 5 and I don't have a family or I didn't buy a home with a garage and pump out some babies. So if you've decided to become a stand-up comedian, then I mean, I applaud you. It's very honorable to me. Uh, and the good thing now is that we have the tools to help elevate us, and it's in the digital world. It's in the digital world. I mean, you can find a place to do a show anywhere, and the show only has to be for 10 people. But that video clip you make can reach 1.5 million people. You know, and that's the kind of world we live in right now. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool as an artist, a performing artist, especially where you're the clips of you doing what you do can go far, you know, and it don't cost you much to make them either. You know, you could just set up your phone at a comedy open mic, and you could do a bit that people seem to love online. You really never know what it's going to be that goes viral. That's sort of like a mystery that we haven't figured out yet. But you just put as much content up as you can. Put it up on YouTube. YouTube Shorts right now are really exploding. So I'm putting all kinds of stuff up on YouTube Shorts, and who cares what the joke is? If the joke got a big laugh or not, I don't care. I just put a minute, and just keep putting them up. You know, I'm going back and grabbing all these old comedy clips that comedy videos that I have in my hard drive and like cutting them up, putting them on. Some shows were shitty, some weren't. It doesn't even matter, man. It doesn't even, because the ones I think are great, they get crappy comments anyways. So who cares? You know, you put your best stuff up there, the trolls still come out of the woodwork and be like, not funny. You're like, okay, the crowd is laughing, but how is this not funny? So I'm at the point now where I see, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether your stand-up clip got a laugh or not. Just fucking put it out there. Just put out as much content as you can. YouTube Shorts, bam, 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 bam. Just a stream of shorts. That would be my recommendation for an up and coming comedian right now. Shoot all your shit and cut them up and put them on YouTube Shorts and just see what flies. It's a great time we live in now where that stuff can help elevate you, though, you know. And it's like we're at a place now where you don't have to wait for some gatekeeper to give you access to their platform or their stage. You can create such a huge following online that you don't need those other people. You don't need to ask. You know, you don't have to reach out to bookers and kiss their ass. You know, you don't have to have those late night drinks with the bookers, and this helps, of course, especially locally in your local area. You want stage time, but you got to kind of do that. But on a bigger level, you don't ever have to do that. If you go crazy wild online and you go viral, you don't have to do any of that. And it's pretty easy now with your phone to just put up clips like that. As far as podcasting goes, I think we alluded to it earlier. Of course, it's a great time where you can make a podcast very cheaply. This microphone I have is great. It costs $70. It's a really good microphone too. You can put it right in a phone and a laptop. I can make really great quality audio for very little money. But podcasting, as we alluded to, is a very crowded field. So you need to have a very calculated approach with that. And that is, in my opinion, get very specific with what you're doing with that, unless you just want to have fun with it. And that's cool too. You can use it as a networking thing. For instance, yours is, I'm sure you use your show for networking. You have comedians that you admire. You have me on the show. Now, when you come to LA, I got some paid work for you, bro. This kind of thing happens. You come to LA, you have some questions, you want to be introduced to some people, get on some shows, you can reach out to me. It's like, so you can use this for something else. Yeah. So you can use it for that too. Super helpful. So if that's what you want to do, go to it, and then have comedians on and talk to them. It doesn't have to be about anything specific. But I wouldn't expect this money to be flowing in from the podcast anytime soon, if that's your approach, and just be aware of that. But again, it's another way to put out content too. So who knows what can happen? Maybe there's a video clip of you and your co-host. You guys did something crazy, and then you share that on other platforms like YouTube or something, or Instagram or TikTok. And that clip can kind of go crazy. So you can use all of the stuff that you do, whether it makes money or not. It's still content that can be repurposed and used, and it can help get you out there and get that following that you're eventually trying to get, so that you can make the money and you can do the things that you want to on various platforms and even in live venues. Yeah. So all content is great. I don't want people to think, oh, he's saying I shouldn't make content unless I have this purpose. Well, no. I'm not saying that. Because all content can be useful. As I just said earlier, I'm taking old clips of me doing stand-up and repurposing them. And so some of them aren't that great. Hell, man, just putting out the content on a daily basis. I try to do it every single day. So yeah, creating content can never end, whether it's bad or good, in my opinion. I used to think otherwise. I used to think only put out a stand-up clip if it's very good. Only put out this if it's very, very high level. Now I'm like, doesn't matter. Just put out the clips, cut them up, minute. Just share them, pump them out there as much as you can. Be like a machine gun of content. Just I think that's the way to do it right now. Yeah.
Until you find your bigger thing, until you find something that kills all the time, and you just focus on that.
That could be a thing. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Eventually you'll find what people want from you. And then you just have to hope that aligns with who you are and what you do. I know a comedian who started putting out dancing videos. His dancing videos got more views and likes than his stand-up videos. And so now he's kind of stuck where he's got to keep making these dancing videos. I'm not sure he enjoys it.
No.
I would think that he would rather be respected as a good comic. So that's kind of tricky. That's a tricky situation to find yourself in. So it's like when you go to if he gets crazy popular as a dance guy, when he goes to do stand-up comedy, are they just going to be like, no more jokes? Just could you do it some dancing? Like, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it could. You can see a scenario where that happens. It's like when Dave Chappelle got back on stage after doing the Chappelle show. It's like people were screaming, I'm Rick James, bitch, Rick James, bitch. They just wanted him to, they weren't, they're like, you're stand up. Yeah, but we want you to say Rick James. So you have to be careful with what you get, what people like, what you become known for online should align with where you want to go to. So I'm not, so I would say if you want to be known as a stand-up comic, just keep putting out the stand-up comedy clips for sure. And we can do that on the cheap right now. It doesn't cost a damn thing.
Yeah. TikTok, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, for anyone that's listening on here, I know we made a joke about saying, "Listen here, guys. If you don't fucking listen to this podcast, they're going to be sorted out." So, like, if for anyone that's listening right there now, and they're like, "Listen here, Sonny Jim, you better tell me about how to find out about you on like social media, email, and all that." What do you say?
Oh, I would just give people my Instagram, which is Funny Jones. Yeah, and from there you can find everything else. My podcast is my if you just on it, if you just want to search for the podcast on a podcast platform, it's called Weird AF News. So it's like weird as fuck news, Weird AF News. And then for those comedy nerds, if you got some real comedy nerds on here, comedy nerds would love that YouTube series I'm doing with the other comedian, Dwayne Perkins. It's called Comedians React. There's a link to it on my Instagram at Funny Jones, but I would highly recommend that. We just released episode, is it 5, which is Louis C.K. And so we've done Louis, we've done Patrice, Chappelle, Richard Pryor, Richard Jenny. Is there a 6th one? No, I think that's it. We've done 5 so far. But we really get nerdy about the stand-up. So stand-up nerds, we really break it down. So I think people like that, big fans of stand-up comedy or other comedians would find it pretty fascinating. And you get to hear like Dwayne Perkins is a master. So you get to hear Dwayne Perkins break it down. I mean, I'm pretty good myself, but Dwayne Perkins is like, he's unbelievable the way he breaks this shit down. A lot of times I just sit back and listen to him. He's been in the game forever. So it's super educational. Yeah, if you like the craft of stand-up comedy.
And if they want to be higher up the membership, how much do they have to pay you? Do they have to pay you £100, £500 for the proper good stuff?
No, I give it all for free, baby.
See, that's what it is, guys. You get all the free shit.
Yeah, we when me and Dwayne do that series, we do it because we like it. It came from a place where him and I get coffee all the time. Like get coffee every week, and we would talk about the art of stand-up. We talk about it like two dorks. We really geek out about it. And so I thought, hey man, we should do this. Is something, people might want to hear this. Let's break down some comedians' jokes. So we watch the video. You can see the video on YouTube. We're watching the bit. And occasionally we'll even pause in the middle of it and be like, whoa, did you see what he just did right there? Or she just did right there? Like, that is what a risk. Like we'll just kind of break it down, like what they're doing, point out things to you that you might not have seen before from the perspective of real veterans of stand-up comedies. It's pretty cool. Yeah. And the comics that we love are great. Like Patrice O'Neill we covered. And if you're not familiar with him, this is a great way to get familiar with him. It's another way for us to share to the world the comics that we really, really love that you may not be so familiar with.
Okay. So guys, you know where to go if you want to get your glasses on and start studying comedy properly. You know where to go if you want to hear some weird news that make you feel better about yourself. You know where to go.
Yeah, you will feel better about yourself for sure.
And if you like this episode, and if you want to watch Jonesy perform, remind you, if you're a bad audience member, he has a gun.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'll need to be getting one soon. Yeah, all my shows are posted on the Instagram at Funny Jones.
So you guys,
yeah,
you know where to go, guys. And if
thanks so much, Marvin, for having me. I appreciate that. I hope your audience found it entertaining and educational as well. And maybe we even converted people today. You never know.
Let's see. We're like a cult.
Yeah, exactly. The cult of comedians. Yeah, come join us, guys. You too can make very little money talking to strangers.
Come and join us, guys. You know you want it. Well, hope you've enjoyed it. If you liked it, share it with your friends. Give us a 5-star review on Amazon or iTunes. And I'll see you guys at the next episode. We got a script writer and a comedy sketch writer coming up. We got a comedy journalist coming up. And we got a comedy couple coming up.